Okay, so welcome back to the big issue on City 973 and also on City TV, discussing the matter of the OSP, the operationalization of his office, or lack of the operationalization of his office, even though a budget allocation has been made. We heard him speak this week, and I've been doing this conversation with Vitus Azim, anti-corruption campaigner. He's with us via Zoom. Franklin Kujo, president of Imani Africa. Two former members of parliament, Fuseni Issa and Dinusa Fuseni. You don't get confused. Yeah. One is the former Tamale Central MP, and the other is the former member of parliament for Okain Kwe North. So we're just trying to wrap our heads around this. We'll try and go at this for the next 30 minutes, and then we will switch gears and talk about the e-levy. But like I said, you can reach us on 0549 986 996 and 0550 5832. We are also streaming on Facebook, so go to our City 973 and City TV Ghana Facebook pages. You can leave your comments there, and if you do miss out, don't worry, just go on our YouTube channel, CityTube, CITITUBE, subscribe, and just type in the videos you're looking for. The big issue, you see my face there, and find the episode that you're looking for, and you can easily catch up. Let me talk to somebody who's close to Kisi Ajabing. He's also interested in this conversation. Sabida, he's a legal practitioner, practicing journalist when he wants to, as well. He's been listening in on the conversation and wants to say one or two things. Sami, good morning.
Good morning, Godfred, and good morning to all your panelists.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for joining the conversation. I'm sure you were listening, and you said a few things caught your interest. Let's hear you.
Yes. I would like to make a little clarification because in the beginning, especially from Franklin to I think Mr. Azim, it was being portrayed as if the corruption league table appears to be all that the special prosecutor intends to do or will be doing. And also to also say that when the special prosecutor said that the fight against corruption had been in reverse for 3 years, he was very specific as to what he meant by that. What he's saying is that, and I think that the Honorable Mr. Fuseni did also make mention of that the office as we know it to be since the act was passed has not been operationalized. And people usually do not understand when he says it has not been operationalized. What it means is that although you have an edifice, a building, and then you have laws for someone to use to fight against corruption, the very operational thing, the very procedural thing that you require in order to be able to work has not been in existence for 3 years. And these things are very simple things. One is human capital, human resources. So this office has three main mandates: investigation and prosecution, asset recovery and management, and then prevention of corruption. You will need investigators, you will need prosecutors. So what it means is that the office requires a certain number of investigators so that all these 31 cases that currently the SP says he's reviewing, he has to do that with his investigators and then prosecutors. Now, if you don't have them, one person or two people cannot do this type of work. When he talks of infrastructure, yes, the building is there, it's a 10-story structure, but you need to retrofit it. It's an empty building. You need to bring in furniture. You need to demarcate offices where people are going to be. The office itself needs all the security gadgets that it needs. Remember, people forget that OSP is an omnibus institution. It's a national security, revenue generating. So many things come together. So it has to be protected. It has to be protected with so many things. These are all expenditure that needs to be done that you need or you require. Now, the next one that I want to talk about has to do with the corruption league table. I think that, like we just said, the SP is saying that this corruption league table is to work in tandem with what he calls the integrity plans that he is going to require or demand from institutions, departments, and agencies. And so, when he says on the 9th, it's going to be like a corruption summit, where people are run based also on not just what people say, but also based on the integrity plans. And then the OSP is also able to do what we call cross-mapping of, if, for instance, I'm just using as an example, say Lands Commission is topping almost every time. Then you also need to be able to do a comparative analysis and find out if Land Commission is topping at any time, how many officers at Land Commission have been prosecuted, for instance. That is if there's so much perceived corruption. So these things work together. And this is not what the SP means that he's going to spend all his resources. He says that he's going to do all the three based on manpower and resource, so that whilst investigation and prosecution is ongoing, he's also doing these other things in order to fulfill the mandate of prevention of corruption. And often when he even began by doing public education on the ills of corruption and how people must stand up against corruption and all that, others have said it's not your mandate, give it to NCC, blah, blah, so many things. But the whole problem I have seen so far, and I think the SP recognizes, is that a lot of people are excited about OSP or are not excited about it, but they've not taken the time to read the laws on OSP and understand exactly what the OSP is required to do, the powers that the OSP has, and the things that needs to be done. And this is not just ordinary people, it also goes for a lot of public officers and officials and politicians who have not taken their time. And so any time maybe OSP tries to ask or demand or request for something, it appears as if, what are you doing? Other institutions can do it. What do you want to do? And what don't you want to do? Then the next part which I want to highlight is that I think the SP has been very clear. He's saying that the OSP has been designed to be a revenue generator. And for him, the OSP can be self-sufficient, just like the previous special prosecutor also admitted, that when the OSP starts recovering assets and illicit wealth, it's supposed to retain 30% of that amount. And that 30% from their calculations should be able to assist the OSP to even be self-sufficient without even depending on the national budget. But it can only do that when the OSP is resourced. And when he talks about resources, it's often not that he needs everything at a go. All the SP is saying that I need the basics to be able to do the work and start recovering some money. And my projection is that I will be self-sufficient without having to depend. And even the state would have to come to me even for money to be able to balance their budget. But without those basic things that I need, I will not be able to do that. So you see, Ghanaians, he was appointed into office in August, and Ghanaians have started. Who have you prosecuted? Why have you not prosecuted? Why have you not done this? And you see that it's all coming out of expectation, but not considering what exactly that is required to be able to do investigation. Some have said, and I think I heard the leader of the strike boss says that it's not really money that you need to do investigation. And then I said that, well, maybe he doesn't understand what it takes to do investigations, because you need a lot of money. I mean, if you're going to even take the case of any simple case that these journalists even do and say it is outside Accra or it's in Accra, you will need transportation, you will need informant, you need to pay. So when the SP is requesting for certain things, it's not that he says they should give him everything before he can start work, because he has started work and he has even told people. Now, I think that the SP has been working as if he's an HR person, which, if you read the act, it's not supposed to be the job of the SP. He's not supposed to be a human resource person. But the SP has turned himself into a human resource person because they need to get things for the office. They need to get the office set up. He needs to work on pay structure and all that. He's seen the pay structure. He's not happy about the pay structure, because if you want people to fight corruption, then there's a certain basic pay that you need to give to that people, and other than that, they may also become corrupt. He's putting together internal integrity plans, and all these works that he's going up and down and doing, Ghanaians will not see it and frankly, some of them may not even care. The essence is that you've been given the job and you have to do it. And you can even hear people say, oh, the SP is drawing salary and all that. But the SP, as I know, is not even on salary. The SP is not even using any car assigned to him by even government.
So you are saying all these things have not yet been provided for him, or these are personal decisions?
That it has not been provided. I'm trying to let people know that it is not that things are not being done. A lot of things are being done, but the SP is saying that in order for me to do it well, because I've been given a job, I have spent months to study the architecture, and I've come to understand the architecture, and these are the things that I require to be able to do it better. But it does not mean that I am folding my arms, I'm not doing anything. However, I will still require a few more things, basic things to move forward if I need to achieve results. I think that is what the SP has been trying to tell the public, and not necessarily that the SP is wailing or complaining. That is not it. That is not it. So that is the intervention I would like to bring out, and to also tell Ghanaians that yes, when you give people jobs to do, you must also be concerned about what it requires to do the job. I'll give this analogy. Somebody said that we need you to move from Accra to Kumasi. How much will it take you to move from Accra to Kumasi? He said, okay, I have done all the estimations. To be able to move from Accra to Kumasi, I will require 200 Ghana cedis. You say, okay, I don't have 200 Ghana cedis, so I can give you 50 cedis to start work. My proposition is that yes, the 50 cedis can let the person start work to a point. However, that 50 cedis will not send the person to Kumasi. So if the person gets to Nsawam, and the expectation of everybody is that the person is supposed to get to Kumasi, and the person is still not in Kumasi, in the eyes of the people who expect the person to be in Kumasi, the person has not done anything. And the point the SP is making is that we have to collectively as Ghanaians ensure that if we are able to adequately weed out corruption, the country is going to make more money. And then issues of human rights or what we call non-development, as people say, may be reduced. He has also hinted and said that it's not that his office is only focused, and that's why I wanted to bring in the last bit of it, apart from the corruption detail and all that. He's saying that the fight, when you talk about his mandate of prevention, he's also going to do what we call corruption risk assessment, which was started by the previous special prosecutor of all major, and his word is major contracts and legislations, not every contract, because the OSP cannot review every contract, but all major public contracts that are of extreme public interest. His office is going to review that. And if he's able to do all these things, it's going to inure to the benefit of the entire country. And so it's not like it's only the corruption league table that the SP wants to do. There are so many things that the SP, as I've become aware, would like to do, but it's also a matter of time. And he has said that he's committed to delivering, and that Ghanaians should expect that even with the resources that he has been given, and he's still pushing, it's not that he's quiet, he's been pushing for more resources, he will be able to deliver on the mandate, and that at the end of the day, people will look back and say that the setting up of the OSP was more beneficial, and in fact, it's the best and the most important medium as we speak in Ghana now to be able to stem the tide of corruption, because the Attorney General may not be able to do certain things by virtue of being a member of cabinet. EOCO can only investigate and not prosecute. As for Shraj, it doesn't have any prosecutorial powers.
Okay. I guess those points are clear. So the clarification, thank you very much. I think my guests are quite clear on that matter. So Same Dako, Private, thank you very much for the time this morning, also sharing his thoughts on some of the things that have been said, trying to clarify. Somebody who knows Kisaja being quite well, spends a lot of time with him as well. So Franklin and Vitus, before I come back into Honorable...
We should be careful of mission creep. You know, sometimes when I hear I like the clarification my good friend brings to the table, and I think we almost said the same thing after you even intervened and said it is not only the league table; he's also supposed to do assessment, risk assessment on all major projects and all of that. Even then, I'm beginning to think again that we might be extending ourselves into other realms and again waste money.
Franklin, please turn your video on for me, I beg you.
Question I have is a special prosecutor going to do risk assessment on corruption on all these projects, or going to do financial risk assessment to determine whether the procured value of a project is the right value? Is that what the special prosecutor is going to do? Otherwise, what would be the work of the procurement authority when they are supposed to, again, ensure that the right set or caliber of technical persons are reviewing these projects? So we need to also understand the type of risk assessment is likely to do on all these projects, so that we don't get into that tailspin of allocating more money to do other things that others would have done anyway. So we welcome the interventions that are being made, but I think we're essentially saying the same thing.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable
Godfred, I think that by and large, we all also agree that the fight against corruption is a multi-pronged sort of system that we need to apply. There are other agencies. The police is doing it, YOCO, SHRAG, and all of that. There is also the internal audit agency. In fact, as an accountant, I think that we have heard recently how much the audit service things that we have lost after they have done their audits, and those are post fact. It's only after those resources have been lost in one way or the other. Some probably we could recoup, some we can't. But another very important agency I want Ghanaians to look at is the internal audit agency, where they ensure that the systems actually work. And in accounting, we say the controls at every stage of a transaction. There are some expectations that has to be met, whether the actual processes are being followed. And that agency is doing quite well. And given the risk assessments that the OSP intends to do, I just hope that they work together in one way or form. Because if the processes and the controls are being followed within the transactions, then this risk assessment might not be something that will be so elaborate for all these resources. Also, just to ensure that we don't duplicate functions, we don't do what the internal agency is doing. Because the internal agency, I am aware, is also in some sort of metamorphosis into some internal audit agency, where the internal auditors within the MMDAs and are going to come together. They are going to their capacity is going to be improved, just to ensure that they stem corruption before it actually happens. And with this risk assessment, just to put this whole thing. But I think that a commitment, and I still go back to the commitment, that's Charlie, it's a green field, and I think that the NPP, yes, there were issues. Like he said, 2018, gift mayors, this being there. And the fact that you also want the OSC to be independent of the Attorney General. So it's a way that you can't channel the resources of the OSC through the Attorney General. And we know the issues with Martin and Bidu. Operationalization at one point, 5.7 million and only 600,000 is being taken. Even the clear procedures in the PFMA that the office was supposed to be were even issues. Thankfully, I am happy that we have a new OSP in office. It's been there 4 or 5 months. We are in a budgetary process, and he's going to get whatever he thinks and to prioritize.
Very hopeful for saying
yes. Very optimistic that the office is going to get back to what Honorable Yunusa Hussaini and the likes intended it when they actually helped us pass the first act of the 7th Parliament of the 4th Republic.
Yunusa?
Yes. So
Sami has clarified issues for you?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I was just wondering in what capacity you were speaking.
No worry.
Now, clearly, there are difficulties, there are problems. So yesterday when your station called me, your network called me, I went straight to Parliament to see whether the special prosecutor had presented his estimates to Parliament. He did that yesterday in the evening.
Oh, yesterday.
Yes. But that brings to question how he went about doing that. Because he has no board. You see why Vitus Azim's point is very important. He submitted it, and he was one of 9 institutions under the constitutional, legal, and in Parliament. The whole Parliament, 9 institutions of state, had not yet presented their estimates to Parliament. And the Office of the Special Prosecutor did that yesterday. I could not lay hands.
Without a board.
Without a board. I could not lay hands on his estimates. In fact, I wanted to be able to ascertain from the estimates and from the expenditure of last year whether indeed and in fact the money that was allocated to him was released to him. Because last year, that was my sole purpose of going to Parliament. But I couldn't lay hands on it. Because last year, the budget, he was given 124 million.
Yeah.
And this is what he was
given.
The office was given 124 million. And under the budget program operations and projects, these were the things he was to do. Internal management of the organization. That is complete.
Sorry to cut you, but you see, Martin Amidu left in 2020, just before the elections.
Yes.
And for first half of this year, I don't think we had an OSP.
But there was a deputy.
There was a deputy.
There's a deputy.
And there was a budget.
I wasn't.
Unless
too
we
sure.
are saying that the deputy
But
does
no,
not
I-
work.
I am not too
I'm not
sure.
even.
I'm
We're
not
not.
too sure
No, we're not
But
talking
there's a
about.
deputy.
First of all,
what it is like.
name. I'm not talking about Kisi Ajabi.
The office.
I'm
We're
talking about the office of the special prosecutor. And these were the things they were to use the 124 million Ghana cedis for. Complete partitioning of a new office block, spacious for all recruited staff. Has it been done? No. Samir Dako, even though I didn't know the capacity in which he was speaking, said so. Provide administrative support to the office. Procure computers and accessories and office equipment and machinery. Has that been done?
We'll find out.
The office is still a shell. It's empty.
All this was the result of when
Provide
Martin Amidu
needed
was,
services to the general public. And that is procure office furniture. Has that been done?
It was one of the issues that Martin Amidu was
You
dealing
understand?
that he
So
never-
you see,
issues Martin Amidu
Martin
tried, that he
Amidu,
never
Has
post
that
Martin
fixed?
Amidu,
Has that been
we are
fixed?
still talking about those problems.
So, and that's
So that
see,
clearly undermines the commitment of government.
Honorable. That
to
is
fight
where
corruption.
Samuel was saying that, look, there's a new OSP who's been in office, barely 4 or 5 months, studied the system. He now knows what he needs. And thankfully,
But the OSP doesn't select
No,
furniture.
I'm not even finished.
No,
I'm not even
no,
finished.
he doesn't
I'm not even
select
finished.
furniture, though.
He says
He doesn't
Money has been
select
allocated,
furniture,
they should
though.
buy it.
But there's money's been allocated. I mean, you don't expect.
You
I
see,
mean, there is some.
the OSP said, look,
he is in the office.
He came to
right?
Parliament.
And he will want to meet some
Specifications.
I mean, so just allow that
I'm
officialization.
saying that these problems have been there since the beginning of the creation of the office. The fact that they have not been resolved speaks much to the commitment of the government.
And no. You see,
because
is that the resources are available.
They are not available. They are not available. You are not. So don't let argue. Let me say. Let me mention the things. Let me mention the things that have not been done.
All right. So
that's
they are the
what
ones
Amidu-
not utilizing.
That was the point of departure of Martin Amidu.
Okay.
The allocation was there. It was for you to start off the procurement process, and then the disbursement will be done.
Well,
so when you
right.
don't start off the allocation,
Don't blame somebody for it.
Don't blame anybody. There
You
is always
see,
competing for those
what we are
resources.
talking about in the case of Martin Amidu, the resources were never released.
But then,
When he
when
put
you have
in,
the
in
budget
fact, when he put
allocation,
in request for the release of resources, they gave him a warrant. He changed
It
the
is
warrant.
part of the
He
process.
changed the warrant until he left office.
the warrant is a part of the process.
The
of
warrant,
forgiveness.
the warrant will
The
record.
forgiveness-
No, the warrant will record that the Ministry of Finance has directed the Controller and Accountant General
part of the
to.
process for allocation.
Oh, let me finish now.
Finish. You have 2 minutes.
that the Controller and Accountant General should release X amount of money to so and so person for the performance of these activities listed on the warrant. The Controller and Accountant General, who is the government treasurer, can only release money to you if there's money in the account. So you can hold a warrant for close to 6 months with that money.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, he was to procure vehicles.
I wanted to wrap up. I have very limited time for this so that I can move on to e-levy.
He was to procure vehicles. And vehicles have been outstanding since the time of Martin Amidu. Ajami is bemoaning the 192, which is a reduction on last year's budget, because he might not be able to accomplish all the things that were even to be accomplished in the year 2021, which were not accomplished and which are outstanding. That's why he's bemoaning the fact.
Like you're saying, we have not even seen his
no, I just look at the raw figures. That is 192, which is a reduction. Well, no, it's not a reduction actually; it's an increase.
Of from 188.
From 188.
Yes.
You know, so we're waiting to see.
All right then. Thank you very much, my panelists, for this. We can now move on. But send your messages. I will try and go through some of the messages. Let's see. AU Farouk Tamale says, good. Well, your messages on the e-levy haven't reached the e-levy yet. Lots of e-levy messages. Thanks. Come on. Okay, so upon Brenya Alexander from Atrimawe Pieja in the Ashanti region says the special prosecutor should come again with his assessment on how to deal with corruption in Ghana and his ability to handle the office, because Martin Amidu's allegation revelations concerning the SP are still fresh in the mind of citizens. Bash Gambo in Tamale says, good morning to you and your panelists. The OSP will continue to be a toothless bulldog if it is not well resourced and not manipulated by the government, by the executive. The commitment of Nana Addo to fight corruption is unrealistic, looking at the allocation of funds for the office in the Awudie budget. Good morning, Godfred. It appears you have been dancing around corruption in Ghana for a long time. The best way to eradicate is to prosecute and jail some of the corrupt, high-profile politicians. The special prosecutor, please just work and stop giving excuses. He will now understand Martin Amidu from Xylix doing. Well, Xylix, it's not about equalization, really. We all need the special prosecutor to work. So he doesn't need to understand Martin Amidu. He just needs to get what he needs to work. Prince Henry Kofodia says, now that Mr. Kissia Jabeng is also lamenting and complaining about lack of funds to run the OSP office like his predecessor, Martin Amidu, was doing, what will be the response of the government? The future is pregnant, is what he says. All right. We will move the conversation on to a red flag or red flags, several, that the minority has raised on several aspects of the budget. Compromise seems to have been reached on some of them, some not so much. But we will discuss the allocation of 240 million Ghana cedis in the budget for the collection of the e-levy, if indeed it does come to pass. But we'll take a quick break before that. So welcome back to the big issue on City 972 and also on City TV. So now we can move on to the matter of the e-levy. I still have a couple of messages that I will take before I get to that. So this one says, it's now obvious that nobody wants to fight corruption in this country. Why is it that the newly appointed SP still has no board and is complaining about the same issues as his predecessor? The SP should also be allowed to appoint his own team of investigators. I agree with that, Alan in Chantan. And then Umar in Accra says, when will Vitus ever say anything good about this government? Rather than encourage it for establishing the SP wing of corruption, he's always quick to run it down. Was he perfect when he was working with the former IRS? That is what Umar is asking. I don't think Vitus runs things down. His job is to question, so allow him to question. Let's deal with the allocation of e-levy then. And the red flag has been raised by the minority, and we caught up with the Member of Parliament for North Tong, Samuluku Jota Blackwell, who says the allocation of 240 million for the collection is needless and does not pass any test of accountability. Now, we all are aware that the e-levy remains in contention with the budget. We understand that both sides are still discussing it. Committee has been set up or so. Now, Appendix 4B at page 242 of the budget reveals that an amount of 241,933,000 Ghana cedis has been budgeted to pay for the e-transaction levy services. Kujota Blokwa says we shall be demanding full disclosure in Parliament on this sweetheart deal. And the sweetheart, I'm using his words, not my words. He says this is a sweetheart deal. So we will listen to 2 reports on this and then return in studio to have a conversation about it.
The electronic transaction levy continues to split heads among members of parliament over its imposition, approval and implementation. The latest matter of contention relates to the allocation of 241 million Ghana cedis for the services of a third-party company to conduct revenue monitoring and insurance. According to North Tongue Member of Parliament Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, there is no justification for such.
Government, by its own modeling, has told us in this budget document that they hope to raise 6.9 billion Ghana cedis, about $1 billion from the obnoxious e-levy, if in the very unlikely event that it goes through. So you have all the numbers. You stated it in the budget. You've done the modeling. You know even how much you're expecting to raise. So if you add this reality to all the investments that have been made in the revenue assurance space, I mean, GRA can do this. Bank of Ghana GIBS can do this. We don't need any entity. And you see, this is not a crusade against any company. I mean, I have heard the company that already has been spoken to and asked to stand by for this contract, even before procurement processes are triggered. And that is another fundamental issue we have with this whole arrangement.
In response to their concerns, Deputy Minister for Finance Dr. John Kumar in a social media post indicated that the services of the third party are required to optimize receipts from this levy. Apart from budget deliberations, Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry Michael Ochibefi has been commenting on the number of jobs created under the One District, One Factory policy initiative. According to him, over 150,000 direct and indirect jobs have been created so far.
Through this arrangement, as at now, what we have, the numbers that we have, 153,782 people have benefited from the 1D, 1F through employment. We're talking about both direct and indirect employment generation in this case. The direct employment alone is 23,505, and the indirect employment is 130,277. This is very phenomenal. I guess everybody can attest to the fact that the coming into force of the 1D1F has brought some change and some difference in the industrial sector of the economy, but because it is also creating a lot of improvement in the local economies, especially when you go to the urban and peri-urban environment, where you see that this initiative has caused the accelerated growth of the economy, and a lot of lives have changed as a result of the 1D1F coming into force.
Following the transmission of a letter from the Minister for Finance to the Speaker of Parliament on Tuesday in relation to concessions in key areas on the 2022 budget statement, the First Deputy Speaker, Joseph Osei, also gave the leaders of the House the opportunity to make comments on the budget statement. The Minority Leader Haruna Idris, in his submission, expressed reservations with the imposition of the e-levy.
Regrettably and unfortunately, on the vexed matter of e-levy, we could not have agreement and consensus as captured by the Minister's own statement in paragraph 7, where he states, and I quote, "Mr. Speaker, on the matter of the e-levy, having regard to its serious fiscal implications, we will continue our consultations." Mr. Speaker, we believe that the e-levy is punitive. It will undermine our quest to grow a digital economy, is seeking to tax transactions And Mr. Speaker, you just can imagine if remittance was sent to your mother, 1,000 Ghana, he sends 800 to a sister, 400 to a brother, 400 to another brother, all that will be taxed. Transactions will be taxed. Mr. Speaker, we are guided by the public good, and we think that monies recoverable from the Auditor General report can as well compensate for the imposition of an e-levy. So, Mr. Speaker, we on this side, we are unable to support government in its quest to impose an e-levy at 1.75% on Momo and associated transactions, including remittances and bank transactions.
The Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin disclosed that government was still engaging stakeholders on the issues related to the e-levy.
Mr. Speaker, on the e-levy, yes, we respect their views, but the Minister has indicated there are two important things that they seek to do. I believe that in the final analysis, it is how this is applied that would matter. And he has even assured that he is going to continue with the consultations and engagement. We are of the view that the whole essence of democracy is not to shut the door, but to open it up for continuous engagement.
The first Deputy Speaker, Joseph Osei, also wrote that the modification statement had been adopted by the House and attached to the 2022 budget statement.
Subject to the concessions outlined by the Honourable Minister responsible for Finance in his concluding statement on the motions. So I will direct that the statement as tabled be annexed to the policy document so that at all committee level discussing them, we take in considerations those documents as have been laid on the table.
The Minority Leader Harry Naijusu and MP for Boko Central Mahama Ayariga earlier raised concerns over the ruling of the First Deputy Speaker on their motion for rescission of the 2022 budget statement. Subsequently, the minority has filed a motion challenging the conduct of the First Deputy Speaker. Deputy Minority Chief Whip Ahmed Ibrahim tells City News the rationale for challenging the Speaker's ruling.
The budget was rejected on the 26th of November. The majority came on the 30th of November with a motion for rescission. And therefore, they reinstated the budget. On the 1st of December, we in minority also came with a motion for rescission to set aside their ruling, the ruling of the Speaker, on the 30th of November. So that motion was moved by Aaron Idrisu, seconded by Mama Ayariga, debated by two from each side. The debate was concluded. We were expecting the Speaker to put the question to the House, because once a motion has been moved and seconded, it's the property of the House. And you remember what happened when Abambagbin gave a ruling without allowing the House to take a decision on the rule tools. The majority then said the Speaker had no power to give that ruling. So on what basis was the First Deputy Speaker giving this ruling when you know a motion has been moved, seconded, debated, debate closed? When you go to Order 87 of our standing orders, Order 87 says that after debate is closed, no question can be put. It's either the ayes or the yes vote. The question should be put to the House to decide, which it didn't do.
One of the modifications to the 2022 budget statement relates to the allocation of 10 million Ghana cedis for the purpose of conducting feasibility studies on the sea defense project in the Volta region. Anglo is one of the constituencies affected by the impact of tidal waves. MP for the constituency, Richard Kwame Sepe, tells City News the allocation is inadequate.
I think.
So that was what happened in Parliament with regards to this. And I will start this from Franklin and Vitus before I come in. Hussein, I put your hands down. Franklin, I am sure you, even before Honorable Ablakwa raised this red flag, you and your team would have highlighted this. But are you convinced by the explanation put forth by the Deputy Finance Minister who, for instance, explains that the allocation of 240 million is to help the government spend on the process to raise the e-levy. And the fact that you have a policy like the e-levy doesn't mean money will come. You have to invest. And by that, you need to have a high-level tech platform which will help to monitor and do the revenue assurances so that the expected revenue you are expecting will be realized. Are you convinced by that explanation?
First of all, just to say that I think the government is compounding the problems of the e-levy by this revelation. You know, the dust is yet to settle on the percentage, and I was beginning to accommodate some of the explanations they were giving because, truth be told, we are in hard times and we are in a difficult situation. Something they must also admit, so that at least once you admit that there are challenges, then we are able to solve them. We are able to at least understand where you are coming from. The fact of the matter is that this government cannot borrow anymore because the debt iceberg alone is becoming much bigger than the one that sank the Titanic. So it tells you that we are in a debt overhang. There's a debt overhang, and clearly speaking, maybe because they are not using the terminologies, the expressions that I'm using, they are in a tight corner. We are definitely, all of us are in a tight corner, and they want us to get our loins, which we tend to understand. So I'm saying that I'm beginning to see where they are coming from, and somehow appeal that yes, they may have to do something about the percentage of the value, but they shouldn't compound the problem with this needless tax on a tax. Basically, I mean, to tell us that you are allocating 240-something million cedis in order to collect an expected 6.5 billion Ghana cedis flies in the face of good good conscience, really.
But Franklin, why does that not just contradict the statement, the admission you just made that, look, we need the money, we need to find the money. So if this is what enables us to get the money, let's do it.
Oh, no. That's not what I'm trying to say. If you had allowed me, I'm coming to the next stage of my analysis, which is to say that we tend to spend too much in this country to collect some of these so-called new ways of new taxes. You know, VAT collected by the GRA, they collect about $2 billion worth of VAT. They don't spend this much money collecting these things they call services. In fact, GRA until around 2020, thereabout, I need to update my figures, spends $125 million in order to monitor, collect, and assure 7.5 billion total taxes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we are going to, in fact, we spend 40 cedis out of every 100 cedis we're going to get from Kelny on the fees? Why? And now we are going to spend $40 million to collect 1.5 billion or so called US dollars. Why? Just do your math. If the GRA collect all taxes and spends $125 million to collect $7.5 billion, why are we spending $40 million to collect 1.5 billion US dollars? In any case, that the point to be made also is that if these platforms that were already collecting the Kelny GVG tax were super, this is just and it's supposed to be an added on. Really. It should be an added on. Why do we have to create another layer of an opportunity for somebody to get a contract again to collect this digital tax? It just flies in the face of I wouldn't like to use the word common sense, but it's not good faith. You see, because the point is that we all know that this money definitely is going to go to some entity And I don't want to get into the realms of whether the entity has been selected or pre-selected. That's the standard. Those are the standard things that our governments do anyway. Which is why I say that when the special prosecutor is saying he wants to do several things and do this interesting stuff, he should probably start looking at some of these things, which is what I think he says he wants to do.
Okay.
Right? So I'm appalled that we are saying that we're going to spend 240 something million Ghana cedis to assure 6.5 billion Ghana cedis, when in actual fact, there's already some supposed entity in place to monitor these electronic taxes. After all, what's it? Look, when you see all these mobile phone companies rolling out promotions here and there, this is the same platform? Why do we have to expend money again to some other entity to do this? So I'm just looking at the numbers and I'm asking myself, if you're spending $125 million to assure, monitor, and collect $7.5 billion US, why spend $40 million? That's a third of that money to collect probably a third of the money, in fact, less than a third of the money we all collect, that the GRA collects. So that's the question I have.
Okay. It's a question I want to put to a member of parliament who has knowledge on these matters. The Honorable Sam George, Member of Parliament for Ningo Papam. Good morning.
Good morning, Prudent.
It's Godfred here. Thank you for joining us. And if you could speak up a bit for me, your voice is a bit low, I would be very happy. I'm sure you heard Franklin's closing comments, and that is where I will start from. Is it the numbers that don't make sense to you, or this is not standard procedure? What exactly is your problem with it?
Well, good morning to your listeners. This is simply create, loot, and share.
This is simply create, loot, and share.
So this is simple. Because it makes absolutely no sense that we are going to be paying 241 million Ghana cedis, about $40 million, and this could be a yearly fee to an entity to collect a tax that is supposed to be used to meet the needs of Ghanaians. $40 million could do a lot for a constituency. Now, you want to ask yourself, why do we need an entity to collect this? Why aren't we going to use the existing platforms? The existing platforms, some of us have had challenges with those platforms, but once we're using taxpayers' money for those platforms, it would be best that we get full value for this platform. Take, for example, the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana is the one that regulates the mobile money space. So if you're going to be taking taxes on mobile money, you would expect that you could use the GIPS payment platform and add a plug-in. Because right now, the real challenge with the collection of this tax is that it's going to be difficult to be able to do the thresholding. And that's really what they need to work around. Because if an individual has 3 mobile phones, you've given a maximum free transaction threshold of 100 Ghana cedis. I could do 90 cedis on my MTN Momo, then move to Airtel to go and do another 90 cedis, and move to Vodafone Cash and do another 90 cedis.
Okay.
On the free networks, I have done a lower than 100 Ghana cedi threshold. The current system does not allow the mobile money operators to be able to, in real time, cross-reference transactions of their clients. So it's not like the banks, where if you use an ATM card on an Absa Bank ATM, by the time you move to a Zenith Bank ATM, the system is centralized, so it knows what your balance is across various bank ATMs. For mobile money, it is not that way. There is no interoperability between the mobile money operators when it comes to balances. And that again, is a different conversation we'll have with all the noise that Dr. Baumia makes about interoperability. There is no interoperability with the databases of transactions. So you could beat the system and actually do transactions to the tune of 299 Ghana cedis or more if you have multiple SIM cards on the network. So if I had 10 SIM cards, which per the new registration regime I can do 99 cedis, 99 cedis, 99 cedis, 99 cedis a day across the 10 SIM cards and do 990 cedis and not be charged the tax. So that's a way of beating these obnoxious tax. But they want to block that loophole. And so in blocking that loophole, they want to create a common platform. Now, my question is simple. If you have the GIPS platform, which the banks use to do interconnectivity, you also have a platform that allows for mobile phones to be monitored in real time, your Kelny GVG system. Do you want to, you know my position on Kelny GVG already.
Certainly,
but my point is we're already paying $198 million for that. So if you're already paying money for that, why don't you use that platform in connection with a GIPS and then don't pay an additional $40 million and get proper value for whatever money you are paying, whether that is right or wrong.
Honorable George, just a quick clarification. Are you certain that? Sorry? I'm just saying, are you certain these two entities have the capacity to do this with just plugins? Are you clear on that?
Oh, certainly. I mean, this is simply an add-on, and systems are built. IT systems are built for add-ons. I have a fair understanding the system that Kelny GVG is running. I have a fair idea the system that GIPS is running, because as parliamentary select committees, we have had visitations to those entities to see the work they do, to see what their platform is. And trust me, this is something that within 2 to 3 weeks, this entities, GIPS, for example, to do integration with. We don't need to have a create, loot, and share scheme where the Ministry of Finance has already selected a company. And next week, in the coming week, I will be putting out information about the create, loot, and share that is going on at the Ministry of Finance. They've selected a company that is supposed to be the recipient of these 241 million Ghana cedis. They have actually brought in new shareholders to change the shareholding of the company that exists, to allow for the interest of those persons who are cooking this deal. All of that information is in my custody, and I'll be putting it out for Ghanaians to see that the tax that we are saying we don't even want to collect, we don't want them to collect. They've already started sharing the money. By creating new shareholding structures in the company. And this is a fintech in Ghana that does not have the competence to do what it is. Look, the Ministry of Finance had a meeting where they invited fintech companies. And when they invited the fintech companies to have a conversation with them about collection, the fintechs were sitting on one side of the table, and this particular fintech was sitting with the Ministry of Finance voice. I mean, it is a sham, and we cannot allow this to continue to happen in our country. Okay. They're telling us to tighten our belts. Everybody is telling us that e-levy is the salvation now. From buying fertilizer to school books to everything. The Minister for Finance told us what e-levy will do. But right now, every minister, in fact, we are being told that if you don't collect e-levy, tourism will suffer. We are being told that planting for food and jobs will suffer. So you want to know what exactly is the e-levy going to be utilized for. But one thing I can tell you is $40 million of that money is going into private hands. As create, loot, and share.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sam George, for the clarification. I know you were somewhere. I'm very grateful for taking the time off to share your thoughts on this. So that is Sam George, Member of Parliament for Nigo Pampam, a member of the, I think that's the Communications Committee, right, in Parliament. Yeah. Yes, he sits on that. So let me come to you, Honorable Fuseni, on this particular matter. The concerns have been expressed. Franklin sits on the side that says, look, we have existing entities that can do this. So there is no need to spend this money to do that. Sam George has also explained his reservations about this. Are you convinced by the arguments that they make that we do not need to hand this over to a whole new entity and spend that kind of money? Obviously, we will spend some money one way or the other to assure the revenue, but perhaps we might not need to spend as much. Does that make sense for you?
Godfrey, you're making a point that obviously we will spend some money for revenue assurance, yes, regarding the policy government wants to raise. And let's face it, this whole issue of where we are as a nation, truly, we need to improve on our revenue generation. That's the reality of it. No matter how you look at the finances of this economy, and it's been like that for a while. We run an economy where your tax to GDP ratio is 12%. In the sub-region, like economies are doing 18 to 20%. In advanced economies, they are doing up to about 35-40% of their revenues to GDP. And Ghana is still doing 12%. How are we going to sustain the running of our economy? How are we going to provide those services? So when the minister hinges provision of services to government revenue generation, it is not out of place. It is not out of place for a minister to say, look, we need the revenues to be able to provide the subsidies on fertilizer. We need the revenues to be able to build the roads that we require. We need the revenues to maintain and improve upon education. Those are the realities. Globally, the standard is that, look, it will cost you between 2 to 5% of the revenues you get to. Look, entities like GRA, they have their retention. It's always around 3-4% of all the monies they get. It goes into cost of collection. This is a scenario where we are projecting to bring a policy that is going to bring in 6.9 billion. And we are saying it's still at it, because until the budget is actually passed, nobody's able to roll out or even spend a dime on those things. But we are projecting that, look, to be able to assure that if we put the system in place at 1.75, we will need some cost. We will spend some money to assure us that whatever policy Parliament ends up after all these protracted negotiations, we will spend some money. So it makes sense to budget for that cost. That's all we are saying.
So in your estimation, this is standard.
And this is what, just about 3.5% of the projected revenues that we expect to get. And I'm telling you, globally, the average is between 2 to 5%. It is irrespective of if we have existing systems, whether Kelny, GVG, whether GAPES, whoever is going to do, it's going to be additional work. And you don't expect that we are going to get it for free.
That could be cheaper.
It could be cheaper. It still remains a budget. So if we don't budget at all, that is where we will be at fault. But we have budgeted that, look, it might cost us up to this amount. It's still a budget.
But their concerns are that
we all admit
allegedly this has already been handed out.
I don't even want to. Honorable Sam George says he has evidence, and we are waiting to see those evidences, right? But let's just put it. It makes sense for government to budget that. It is going to cost us extra, whether we use a new entity to do the revenue assurance, whether we use existing systems that will have to do more work. Who knows? Even if we use GIPS, maybe new service, new people will have to be employed. It is going to be some element. So what is wrong in budgeting for it? And then all of a sudden, our friends on the other side will say red flags. What are red flags about this? Budgeting for that's the aim of a budget. That is why we do budgets. I estimate that I want to raise this through a new policy. It will cost me X amount. If at the end of the year it costs us less, we certainly are not going to disperse our monies. So what is a big deal in there? I think that we are actually using this whole process to execute some political agendas, and I think we should move away from that. But that's the reality of it. Okay. The reality of the budget is that we are saying that, look, if this policy goes through, it will cost us. And that is not in contention. Mm-hmm. Everyone agrees. It is not in contention that even if we have to use existing systems like GVG or GAPES, we will still have to incur extra costs. So let's budget for it. Until this budget is passed, until the Appropriations Act comes into it, we are not so sure how this thing is going to go. So it still remains a budget line item, and I think it's appropriate thing, is a correct thing to do, and nothing untoward. There's nothing untoward about us showing this as a budget line. If we didn't show anything, then I would be worried. If there was nothing in the budget towards this anticipated cost, then I'll be worried. But once there's something, I think that we are just making noise about something that we should.
Our accountant says there's nothing to worry about. Vitus Azim is still with us, and he's very worried about it. Vitus, you've heard some judges' concern, but Honorable Issa also makes the case that, well, these are budget projections, and you would be more worried if it were not in the budget. So transparency has worked in this estimation, so basically nothing to be worried about. But I understand you do not agree. You are very worried by this. Mr. Azim. Vitus. Okay. We'll try and get... Okay. Vitus.
Yes.
Yes. You've heard the two parties, and by parties I don't mean IMPP and this. I mean the two. The two sides of this. The two sides of this matter. What is your take on this?
No. I mean,
my take is this: the minister explained that you needed to invest in order to be able to get the money, and my friend, Mr. Honorable Isa, is saying that you have to budget for it. We need to budget for it, but let it be part of the GRA budgets. There's no need to always budget for a new policy for an institution that already exists. Let that 240 million go into the budget of the GRA. GRA has been complaining of lack of resources. They need more staff. They're not getting the approval to recruit more staff. Invest in GRA, give them the necessary equipment, the necessary staff to go out there and collect the monies. There's no, it's like somebody always comes, oh, I have this good idea, let's make some money. So you come with a new issue and you give it to a private firm. Why have you set up the government revenue collecting agencies? You are not giving all these opportunities to them to develop themselves, and you are always looking for outside firms outsourcing these things. You remember is it Super Info Solutions? Some of us made noise about this for a long time. Nothing happened. Then Franklin was mentioning Kelvin G. Why are we always looking for new firms to do things that we have set up government institutions to do? So I don't support it. Their explanations are not convincing at all.
All right, thank you, Vitus, on this. Let me come to Honorable Idris Afuseni, but I have a message here that you can incorporate into your thoughts. So this coming from one of our listeners. He says, Fuseni Issa, he was addressing some of the points you made. He says, tell Honorable Issa that the tax to GDP tell Honorable Issa that Parliament needs to pass a bill that stops the tax waivers being given to cronies.
It's one of the policies in the budget.
Hold on. You don't need the databases of MNOs or EMIs to be centralized for e-levy to work or be collected. Currently, you can still send 100 Ghana cedis if you had 3 Momo accounts without paying any transaction fee. GRA doesn't need to centralize the bank accounts of all businesses in order to charge VAT, PE, or any other taxes. Each account or business are required to pay their taxes. And his main concern ends with, we should be debating the percentage of the e-levy. We will get to that, my good friend. But Honorable Idris Afuseni, let me hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I'm also very worried. In fact, I do not find justification for what they are doing. Justification because we were told in the budget that electronic transactions have been growing. Also, and this year up to June, they had gotten 800 billion. That's what the minister told us. How did he come by that number? Because there was a monitoring platform. It's precisely because there was a monitoring platform. That's how he came by the number. So, can the platform perform that responsibility? Yes. So
but
you see,
that's the cost.
Still at a cost. But no. Wait.
I'm not saying anything. You know I won't do that.
No, this is a country that is between the devil and the deep blue sea.
How so?
We're broke.
Okay.
We're broke. We're looking for resources. So prudence.
The finance minister hasn't said we are broke.
We are broke. He won't say that because if he says that, it will be a run on this country. So he would never say that. But we're broke. And everybody knows that our tax revenue, including the grants that we get, and all other revenues combined together, does not serve 2 items: compensation and payment of interest. Everybody knows that. So we're not talking about investment. We're not talking about capex. We all know that. So government assess the situation. And finances on the international money markets are drying up. We're not getting. But government needs to work. So they looked at these transactions growing. So they see it as a veritable source of revenue. Now, why will MPP, at any time that they initiate a policy, they think that it's an avenue to make money?
That is how you see it?
That's how it is.
Explain.
They just told you about info systems. When they brought the policy, where did info systems come from? They told you about GVG. How did it come about? How did it come about? How did it come about? Now, go and look at the purchases at the Ministry of Education. The laptops, who is supplying them? How did it come about?
That was not a government initiative.
I mean, it's a private person. Well, it's a private person who is supporting. It was
the teacher unions who selected the supplier.
You say you wouldn't interrupt what I'm talking about. No, you say you won't interrupt.
Don't worry.
So this thing too was not a government initiative.
Don't ask him questions if you don't want to respond.
The fact is that I'm saying that any time government policy, and it's a government policy, and I've read clearly, why will the minister sign the contract for that purpose?
Which purpose?
The purpose of supplying laptops to teachers.
Don't worry, but let's focus on
now,
this one.
So please.
It's okay. Let's just focus on this one.
I'm saying that why will the party, the MPP government, anytime they are introducing a policy, is an avenue to enrich themselves? Who supplied the ambulances? Who supplied them?
But somebody has to supply
who
something.
Supplied them?
I don't know, but
so in situations of this nature, so who supplied the masses?
So somebody shouldn't supply?
Who supplied when the school uniforms were changed? Who was the contractor who was given the contract to provide the school uniforms? Who was that? Who owned the printer of the textbooks? So how do we select the contractor? I'm simply saying that any time that there is an initiative that is backed by public resources, you must employ not only transparent means of getting the money, I mean, people to do work where you can assure yourself that you are getting value for money. You must advertise the projects.
But honorable, you can't advertise at this stage when the policy itself is not been approved by Parliament.
Well, we cannot advertise.
How can you advertise for services when the policy itself is not been approved by Parliament?
We can't advertise at this stage. I agree with you.
Yeah, so
I agree with you. But I can assure you, we will not even advertise. The fact is that we will not even advertise it.
So you didn't know before we get there?
Yes, I'm telling you.
Oh.
You see, Nosita A as to things take their color from their surroundings. I can mention 1,001 contracts that were sole source and never advertised.
That is not illegal.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, you see,
he hasn't said
you are moving the goalposts.
Go on.
You just asked me that.
I know what this is. Focus on me.
You just focus on me. Then I'm forced to also focus on me. When you ask me a question, then I'm forced to
focus on me. I can mention 1,001 contracts that were sole sourced.
Okay.
That clearly points, as me standing as a dispassionate observer of government activities, that clearly points a certain direction to me that any time government sees money, it finds a way to claw back the money. There's serious kleptocracy in this country, where we are taking public resources and making it private resources. Yes, there will be cost to it. Why don't you build the capacity of already existing institutions that can do the job? Why do you think that the best way to go about it is to contract private persons to do that? But and who are these private persons?
Are they not Ghanaians?
Is it that because we believe in property owning?
But is it wrong?
No, it's not wrong. But you must ensure that every Ghanaian believes in the process. That you must create opportunities. I just read a quote from the first Prime Minister of this country, Buzia. You must make sure as a government that every Ghanaian, every citizen of this country feels that he has equal opportunity if he has the capacity to win such government projects. You must create that. People must believe that they can win it on their own merit. You don't create shadowy companies and give them contracts, government contracts, and claw back those resources. You don't do that. And that is the worry. That is our worry. You set up which person. So the two, because there's global standard. So the 241 million conforms to global standard. Cheap argument. Do we necessarily have to follow the global standard? Our situation doesn't warrants us to follow the global standard. If America is using 2 or 3% to collect their monies, Do we have to use 2 or 3% to collect our monies? Do we have to? No, I'm saying no. And I believe that the institutions, yes, one might not argue for long, or one might understand what is pushing this government into going e-levy. And exactly what is pushing the government to go e-levy must inform the government of how the e-levy money should be used. Clearly. You can't think of it in a disjointed manner. Because we are in a difficult situation. And because we're in a difficult situation, we're looking for resources. I can bet you, if we could tax the consumption of water, we are even taxing it.
I thought you did it.
We are even taxing it. Mm-hmm. If we could tax the air, we will tax it. Because we need resources.
Yeah, but you are making that admission that we're a country in dire needs.
We need resources. But again, because we need the resources, it imposes on us a responsibility, a duty to be prudent in the utilization of those resources. Now, if you are not having resources and you are being wasteful, then tell me the justification that you have in imposing hardship on the people.
But are these not purely assumptions born out of
there
distrust
are no assumptions
rather than the fact? Because Honorable,
they are not. Are they assumptions? Do you believe that they are assumptions? I'm just saying that I'm drawing inferences from past activities. Are they assumptions? Have they foundations? Can they be justified? Am I entitled to draw those inferences because of my past experiences?
Yes.
So yes.
Okay. The person who has labeled this a sweetheart deal and an unconscionable deal is Honorable Lisa. Just hold your horses for me. I will give you time. Has joined us on the line. I think he's also been listening. The Honorable Samuel Okujo to Ablok, a member of Parliament for North Tong.
The discussion is.
No, I'm just talking to the people who are raising the questions. He is the one who has concerns.
That's fine.
I can't talk to anybody else but him on this particular matter.
They should call Glover. That is Glover.
So,
or that former deputy minister. He says, if you don't want to transfer the money, keep your money on the phone.
I have questions for him. So, but let me deal with Honorable Ablak. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Vimate, how are you this morning? You're good?
I'm well, Vimate. Good morning to you and good morning to the panel.
Thank you for joining us. Strong language you used this week in describing the allocation of 240 million Ghana cedis in the budget for the collection of the e-levy. Now, listening to the conversation around this, my understanding is, one, you do need an entity to assure the revenue. If indeed this levy does get passed, that is something that needs to be done. Your concerns are with how the selection has been done, the amounts that has been budgeted for it. Those are just your two issues. Other than that, this would be standard operating procedure, right?
You are wrong. I totally disagree with that. And good morning to everybody. Good morning to all our listeners. I take the view that we do not need another entity. It is not a must that you need a new layer or another entity to carry out revenue assurance. The GRA can do this. We have existing bodies and institutions that can carry out this revenue assurance or revenue monitoring or revenue tracking or validation. There's so many terminologies that the Deputy Finance Minister used earlier in the week in response to my concerns. Monitoring, tracking, validation. The GRA can do this. GIPS can do this. The Bank of Ghana can do this. If you refer to paragraph 312 of the budget, government has accounted in detail the value of the e-transaction space in paragraph 312. The question is, how was government able to track, to monitor, and to come by the values, and to be able to project, to create a model that concludes that they can raise potentially 6.9 billion Ghana cedis. So the point we are making fundamentally is that we have existing systems. Look, over the last 5 years, we have spent over 1 billion Ghana cedis creating revenue assurance vehicles. right from the Kelny GVG contract. You remember that contract, Kelny GVG. They are doing revenue assurance in the e-transaction space. You remember the McKinsey contract with GRA? Its revenue assurance is to boost GRA's revenue collection potential. Then there is the GIPS interoperability contract, which recently we were told cost us about $4.5 million. So we have all of these creatures in the system that can monitor, that can track, that can validate. So the first point, the fundamental issue, is that we do not need another entity. Call it third party, call it a revenue assurance, contractor, validation or monitoring or tracking entity, no matter the terminology. We are saying that we have enough institutions between GRA, BOG, GIPS, and then the various private actors we have brought in, the non-state actors like McKinsey, Kelny GVG, which are contracts that continue to run and cost us hundreds of millions of dollars. It is adequate for us to be able to monitor, to track, because government itself in the budget has been able to track, to monitor, and give us numbers, unless government is saying that they only conjure those numbers, or that all of the contracts and all the assurances we were given in Parliament about these contracts are not working. Then government should tell us that we are not getting value for money for all the investments we have made, running into billions of Ghana cedis for tracking, monitoring, and validating. Then the second point, which we make forcefully, is that the amount, it defies best practice. 242 million Ghana cedis, when you round it up, is more accurately 241,933,000 Ghana cedis. So this amount, if you do the arithmetic, is 4% of what government is projecting to collect from the e-levy if in the unlikely event government succeeds in pushing this down our throats. Now, 4% is on the high side. We have looked at data all over the world, including OECD countries, and the average is 0.5%. We have been generous to say that, look, even maximum, you can do 1%. That is, if you even want to convince us that all the billions we have spent on similar revenue assurance schemes are not delivering, we are not getting value for money. The best practice is not to go beyond 1%. Look, all the monitoring we have done, the worst contract we have seen is one in Poland, which is 2.73%. We haven't come across 4%. So the quantum is wrong. And then the third point is the lack of transparency, the sweetheart deal nature of this whole allocation. Will you believe that even before procurement processes are triggered, a particular company has been called and asked to start putting themselves together and putting in place, the mechanisms and doing all the preparatory work? And everybody knows in the fintech space. Talk to the fintechs. Talk to the tech guys. They know which company is going to execute this. It's known if you talk to even your sources at the Ministry of Finance. And we are asking, how do we do things this way? So that instead of being competitive, allowing the Public Procurement Act to be respected so that there will be a competitive tender process. That is, even if we are forced to come to the juncture that we need such an arrangement, remember that we insist that we don't even need this new revenue assurance layer. We have enough in the revenue assurance space in Ghana. We are spending billions of Ghana cedis investing in all of these contracts all over the place. But even if you will want to invite a new player, what happened to transparency? What happened to protecting the public purse, making sure that there is a fair chance, and when people compete, that competition brings out the best, it drives down prices, and you get value for money in the final analysis. All of this have not been met. So it's the most sleazy allocation. the most dubious allocation in the budget. And the more I dig into the allocation. And the contradictions.
Where?
You see the contradictions. When I made this discovery, I would encourage you to go to the Facebook page of the Deputy Minister for Finance, the Honorable John Kuma.
Okay.
He put out a post and confirmed that they will certainly need a third-party entity to do revenue assurance.
Okay.
Then the majority chief whip, the Honorable Anodompre, then issued another statement saying that, GRA is going to do it. GRA is not a private company. So the allegations I have made about a shadowy company is not true. Then 2 days ago on Eyewitness News on City, the Honorable John Kuma made a U-turn and is now saying that, GRA is going to do it, forgetting that we have read his post, we have screenshots, and that he made it clear, without any equivocation, without any ambiguity, that a third party was going to execute this contract. So you see, governments flip-flopping. I mean, the whole opacity with this allocation clearly shows that this allocation is needless. And I agree with other civil society organizations. I've read from Bryce Simmons. I've read from Kofi Bentil, who all agree with the position we have taken, that we don't need another layer of revenue assurance. GRA can do this. Look, GRA collects over $2 billion of VAT every year, and they are not asking for $40 million. That's what this allocation works out to, $40 million, and it's going to be an annual allocation in the budget. We don't need this. In any case, why are we even making this a fixed figure and not making it a percentage of what will be collected? Because all analysts, I have read a paper from the Chamber of Telecoms, and they have said that government is too ambitious with its projections. And evidence shows from around the world, from Angola to Kenya to Tanzania, that anytime you have introduced these e-levies, they have not worked, and people have just moved away from the cashless space. Financial inclusion suffers, and in Angola, as you know, they quickly even abandon the tax. Kenya same, Tanzania same. So the telcos, the Chamber of Telecoms, and other analysts are saying that government's $1 billion projection is even too ambitious. So what happens if by the end of 2022, these cautions that government is ignoring, it comes to pass, and we are able to raise, let's say, maybe just 1 billion or 2 billion out of the 6.9 billion that we are expecting to raise, you will have handed over a 242 million contract to this entity. So even the idea, I don't know whose idea it was, to make this a fixed allocation in the budget instead of a percentage of actual realizations, whatever would really accrue from the tax, then a percentage of it. That is, even if we need another layer, and we are saying that we don't need a new revenue assurance scheme. Between Kelny GVG, McKinsey, GRA, Gibbs, Bank of Ghana, look, we have made enough investments to handle whatever new tax we want to introduce.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Samuel Okudjota Blocker, for giving us time and to share your thoughts on this Member of Parliament for North Tongue. Honorable Lisa, I see you've been writing, and you have a few things that you disagree with.
It's amazing. All the contributors, nobody is said that it is not going to cost us anything to roll out these points. Nobody said that. And what government also intends to do with this line item in the budget is to project. What it says, the line item says e-levy cost. It didn't say that we're going to put a new layer or we are going to give it to existing. The truth is that until the budget is passed, no processes. The minister has no power to start any processes. Why are we putting a cart before the horse? What are we on about? You go and say that why should it be a fixed figure? It should be a percentage of whatever we take it. But the budget is not in percentages. The percentage is not in percentage. It's in absolute figures.
No, but
so
those are
that relationship.
Are those built on assumptions?
That's the assumption. So the assumption of how much or the percentage or whatever relationship between what is going to accrue to you and what is going to cost is what comes after the figure.
But for those who...
So how are you going to show percentages in there?
No, but that is why they are saying then that...
Tell you, Godfred,
okay.
I am government. Yeah. I am imposing a tax on you, the use of electronic services. And then I employ Honorable Inusa to be able to give me the revenue assurance that whatever revenue I'm getting is the right amount, the system simply. It's not a third party to the transaction. So whether Honorable John Kumar said a third party, whether Honorable Anodron Press said GRA, is still a third party to a transaction. So it is there is no divergence. I still insist, if I looked at the budget, and there was no provision to how much additional cost that government is going to incur in getting this new stream of revenue, I did be worried. But now that the government is provided for in a budget that is yet to be approved. So what is the problem?
So you don't see any problem with this but those who have problems also say their problems are based on their experience of what the processes are.
Experience of what processes? Processes that have not begun. Until the Appropriations Act is passed. Mm-hmm. And you can infer whatever you want. But we have said that. What the government is saying is that this is a new revenue stream. Okay. And in order for me to have the expertise and everything, it will cost me something to be able to ensure that I'm getting the right revenues. As simple as that.
Okay.
And nobody has disputed that fact.
All right. So in your estimation, the government has done nothing wrong in this matter.
It still remains a budget. And okay. I think that, and I keep saying that, if I looked at the budget and there was no line item, I did be worried.
Okay. No problem there. I want to do a bit of...
let me remind him.
Okay, remind him before I talk to Dr.
That when MPP says that, the processes have not started, you need to be worried.
But that is also drawn out of your experiences.
Not my experiences. The minister came to Parliament and said that this budget will take effect on 1st January 2022.
That is the practice.
And the policy was that in 2022, from 2022 onwards, we are not going to pay road tolls. The next day, a minister of government issued a fiat abolishing road tolls.
You see, we can go back. Let me address quickly. Look, we form policies. Ministers, and when he was minister, he operationalizes some of these things. And in the process of operationalization...
What's operationalization?
But when Parliament...
See, a policy that's a tax handle, don't go there. A policy that is a tax handle, it imposes a duty on the duty bearer to collect the money.
Why don't we every year achieve what we are supposed to do?
Answer the question. If a law imposes a duty on you,
you can make the law.
Gentlemen,
you can make the law.
Let's not digress.
There are
not practical issues. No, there are not practical issues. No, there are not practical issues.
Let me talk to you.
The road tolls have been collected since 1957.
It's okay.
What are the practical issues?
That point is clear. Let me talk. I want to add another layer to this conversation.
Another layer.
Yes, another layer. It's a fourth layer. I am adding another layer.
Oh, please.
Dr. Alex Ampabe is a fiscal policy specialist at Oxfam. He deals a lot with taxes in this regard, and I've brought him on to give us a bit of an academic perspective or independent perspective in this regard, because as Inusa has said, both my Fusidis have said, sorry, we have two parties on this particular line. But Dr. Ampabe, good morning. Thank you for joining the big issue. Can you please turn down the volume on your radio? You are near a radio set.
I'm actually not on the radio.
Oh, okay. We were getting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. We were getting some feedback. I will talk to you on two things quickly. The levels of the e-levy, first of all, and then we'll talk about this allocation. First of all, does the design of this e-levy make sense to you? Hello?
That's a very loaded question.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I'm saying, did you get my question?
Yes, I did. Whether the design of the e-levy do make sense?
Yes, it makes sense to you. Looking at our peculiar economic situation, does it make sense?
I really do think that there's no yes and no answer in this scenario. And the reason is that e-transactions are becoming an issue of the day. There are a number of transactions being carried on online, and therefore, on an electronic platform, it makes sense for government to rake in some revenue. But whether we are targeting the right transactions is where the question is. And I think this is an issue we've talked about over and over and over again. Because somebody transferring money from A to point B, what I normally describe as the money transportation, transferring the money from me to you as a friend who needs money to maybe travel from Tamale to Accra. You just called me. Then I'm transferring $300 to you and automatically I'm taxed. I don't know the value that has been created in that change. So in that case, it becomes really difficult to justify some of those transactions. The other part of it is also with the rate. Now we're saying 100 Ghana a day with a monthly limit of 3,000. And the question that comes up is, if somebody transacts 1,000 on a go without any further transactions for the whole month, that person's monthly limit is 3,000. Sorry, it's only 1,000. What about somebody who does 100 a day throughout the month? That person by the end of the month has already transacted 3,000. The one who did one on a go has done only 1,000. That he will be charged on the 900 because you are over the daily limit. So are we going to have a situation where it's okay, even if you decide to go ahead, are we going to have where your account will be rated to zero? Then when you cross the 3,000 threshold, then charges have kicks in. But to say on a go 3,000, on a go 100 with monthly 3,000, there's no fairness in it. And again, it raises another question. So me and you go to the supermarket to buy something. We're in the same queue. You pay something, the same item. You buy something, the same item I buy. Then the queue, you go first, you pay cash. You walk through, you pay nothing. I follow up just behind you. I pay with mobile money. I pay tax. Again, tax is about it. So it kind of raises so many questions with regards to its design. Ideally, I would have looked for a way to step back to assess which transactions are just what are the terms, just money transportation from one person to another, mother to a daughter in school, and which transactions are actually merchant-based and are creating value. So probably at some point we need to really revisit it. And we haven't passed it. I'm sure consultation is all still ongoing. It's still not late. There's no point to rush. It's good to step back. Definitely there is opportunity to rake in some revenue on electronic transactions. But we need to be very careful, one, not to take people off the very digitization agenda you want to achieve. We need to be sure that we are not moving people away from the cashless agenda we are promoting and rather promoting more informality, because the more informal we have, the difficulty for government policy design, including tax policy design. If you can get more people on the electronic platforms, going forward, if our government can even a better chance to generate more revenue if we can exercise a bit of patience to get more people on the platform, but any higher taxes, if it's perceived to be, stand a chance of taking people off the digitization agenda, because if I make a difficult scenario or comparison, And a good example is Uganda. Uganda introduced the same tax. And the starting point was 0.5, not even up to 1.
Mm-hmm.
But in less than 1 year, the revenue, which now you're projecting 500 billion or whatever, the revenue reduced by 38%. Just 0.5 led to a reduction of 38%. So if we are coming out with 1.75, how did we do the simulation? How did we do the modeling? How did we come about that 500 billion multiplied by 1.75 and then multiplied by the 50% we are supposed to pay is going to give us 6.7 billion or so? This is based on assumptions that all things being equal, that nobody is going to stop, everybody is going to give in to the tax, everybody is happy. In fact, how the model talks about other people likely to step back and go cash because they might probably not see them as the best way to go. So I think there are a couple of things I believe we need to really sit and address. But one recommendation I would have given to the government would have been, as it stands, if you're spending money, some platforms do charge, whereas some platforms, mobile companies don't charge. So the question is, why would government not find a way to regulate the sector better, that telcos are not doing what they think is right for them? Government is rather regulating the sector, saying, okay, if you're sending, it's more like depositing. So it's like you giving me money to go and put in your bank account. That is what the sending is. So can government say, okay, when you're sending, you're not going to take any charges from you, and you want all telcos to respect this. In that case, government say will take that 1% when you are sending. Already, Ghanaians have been paying this for many years, so I don't think it will have triggered any kind of resistance. Then telcos also charge when you're withdrawing. The government takes when you're sending, telcos takes when you're withdrawing. In that case, Ghanaians are paying already. So it's not a situation where certain networks you pay for sending, certain networks you don't. If government is that desperate for revenue, which we all appreciate, that the country is broke, there is no money, but can we do this without this distorting other key gains government have made over the years in the economy?
And then quickly, if you can just spend a minute on the second one for me, this dispute over revenue assurance and the need to bring in another entity to meet these assumptions that have been made based on the e-levy. What are your thoughts on it? And the fact that a fixed amount has been placed.
Again, my honest opinion, we definitely don't need another entity to do that. One, we have the Federal Revenue Authority with the ultimate mandate of tax administration. Is it an issue of capacity gap to the GRA that needs supporting? And is this money going to be a one-off in the budget to fix a system? Because remember, this is more of an indirect tax. So the chances of tax evasion is very minimal. It's not like individual-based taxation where people have to do self-assessment with the possibility of underreporting figures for overstating claims. The question I will ask to everyone is, how is government administering the CST, the Communication Service Tax? How different is the systems in place in administering the Communication Service Tax from this e-levy? So do we really need any organization outside the county GVGs, the GRAs that we have already as a government? And you see, last year, the Ministry of Finance launched, I think it's actually this year, launched a department which is currently working within the Ministry of Finance and already, which is the Revenue Assurance and Compliance Unit or so. The purpose, we want to reshape that particular organization setup. And the minister even did mention in this budget that the government is going to support and equip that unit. They are based in the Ministry of Finance, but actually working with GRA and their purpose is to ensure revenue assurance. A brand new division set up with a brand new set of teams, their job is to ensure revenue assurance. Again, allocations will be made to this rate division. Allocations are going to be made to GRA for tax collection. Contracts for connectivity and the rest are ongoing. What I do think we need is to have the telcos review the interoperability platform. That told the government or inform government of the figures that have been moving around on the platform and how much is the sector worth. So, how do government install a system that will automatically detect how much telcos are making? Because it's monitor the telcos with the help of DRA can remit to government straight away without any third party thing. It might be an issue of working with the relevant authorities like the Bank of Ghana and the GRA to install the relevant system to monitor the telcos. And is it an issue of they remitting the money to government in every month? Is it going to be every quarter? Is it going to be the end of the year? So some of them are more of an administrative issue that needs resolving. But certainly, we really don't need another quality assurance division outside GRA and the revenue assurance and compliance issue, which has rapidly been launched.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Dr. Alex Ampabin, for sharing your thoughts. He's a fiscal policy specialist at Oxfam, sharing some interesting thoughts and suggestions and even making a recommendation to the government on what can be done if they really want to see this e-levy through. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, take final comments, and we'll wrap up the big issue. Welcome back. I'll take a couple of messages. A lot of people are interested in this, but I'll take Franklin just after I take my messages, then do an round and then wrap up. Julius Afedi from Somenya says, he's talking about fuel prices. He's asking what is the essence of the fuel reduction if they are paying the same fares. What Lanyo in Akwatia says, the minority is fighting a concern that is totally needless and quietly. They want everything in their constitution to be fixed in the twinkle of an eye, but on the blind side, they are fighting e-levy, which is the easiest means of taxing all across. Indeed, politicians are truthful when they call each other liars. Interesting. Lawe Richard from the Central Region says the government is trying to generate more revenue, but it's not ready to reduce our expenditure before we grow in revenue generation. The government needs to kick out its unnecessary expenditure. We are paying indirect tax, but the government is trying to add Momo tax, which is very, very bad. He's not very happy. Gariba Akonsi from Tamale says the government should take the bull by the horn. For when the economy collapses, then the PP administration will be blamed. Globally, nobody's willing to pay tax. So the government should not see the opposition to the e-levy as strange and novelty. It's only urge the government to be transparent to Ghanaians after collecting the tax. The Ajinkwa budget has a lot of good initiatives. With the Ghanaians, should be more concerned about the youth start because that is our future and it's going to create jobs for us. E-levy should be a secondary matter because when there are jobs, there is hope. I'm sorry, master plan and the e-levy cannot be a secondary matter. That one, no. Let's see. Upon Brenya Alexander from Barricassis says the government should take into consideration the high standard of living in Ghana now, high fuel prices, high tariffs, high cost of commodities, etc., and should spare us with the e-levy 1.75% on all electronic transactions, but rather seek for consensus so that we can start from the 0.5% and continue to increase it as a yield of reputable results. Let me listen to Franklin Kujo. He's been observing, he's been listening quietly. Franklin, your thoughts? I'll give you 2 minutes each and then we wrap it up.
Well, thank you very much. I think a lot has been said. And, the Ajinkwa budget, Ajinkwa means savior, right?
Yes,
it appears that the e-levy might be its savior because it looks as if everything is tied to the e-levy. I think the government should just listen and do something about the percentage. I mean, I guess that's where we are right now. The minority seems to be saying that if there was some movement around the percentage, then some conversations would be had. I certainly share the view as well. So we should do something about the percentage because it is quite clear that from the position of government, without this levy, any part of it at all, the economy would be in more dire straits.
But Dr. Ampambe makes a point that the government's assumptions are quite bold because it does also make the assumption that everybody will pay their tax. The numbers or volumes will stay the same without considering the fact that there might not be that kind of uptick.
Well, that's another conversation. And I think my colleague Bright Simmons has also done some work on that. And if you don't take care, the expected $1.5 billion or so for all that has gone on may not be attained, which is why it is important to start from a percentage, a position that people can begin to see reason and value and say, okay, well, we think we can live with this percentage. And that's what I think they should do.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Hussein Issa.
Godfred, the Ajemkwa budget, as we have it, actually the Ajemkwa, it's actually the savior, and you know the season in which we are. Very soon the Ajemkwa budget is going to be approved, and then right after the Ajemkwa will be born. So
in December.
In December, and so it's an Ajemkwa December. As to whether government projects that everybody is going to pay the e-levy, I'm not too sure. Else would have been just 1.75 on all electronic transactions that happen. But 1.75 on about 800 billion. I mean, it's in projecting. You actually make provisions. People might have change in behavior and all of that. And I'm sure that all of them has been taken into consideration. The other bit is that I am also quite happy that unless the entrenched positions are moving,
are changing,
and I'm happy that the two sides in Parliament are still engaging, as we hear, and I'm hopeful that in the next couple of days we are going to come to a consensus and then get this budget done, and then we can move on as a nation. But the reality is that, I mean, every economy needs to raise revenue, and we've been in this country. Condoms have been taxed because government needed revenue at a point in time. Cutlasses were taxed because government needed revenues. And you have to be innovative. Honorable just alluded to the fact that all revenues that come in, we pay our debts, we pay public sector wages, and then we're almost done. And then we have other commitments, statutory payments, other funds, they get fund, they will have to be run. And all of this, we have to raise revenue. Yesterday or so, people at Agape are demonstrating for routes. It has to come from somewhere. We have to be ready to pay for the services. And we also have to know that, look, at this stage, where Ghana is, we need to do something about where we are. We can't continue having 12% as a GDP to our revenue when like countries within West Africa are doing close to 20%. In advanced economies where we go and we see efficient public services, and at that time somebody was talking about efficient public transport systems and all of that, it comes from the same kitty. And that kitty will have to be filled before we can actually spend from it. So as Ghanaians, I think we have to collectively agree that we need services, we need to grow our economy, we need to sustain our education, we need to sustain health, we need to grow agriculture and all of that. And to be able to do that, government will have to be innovative in raising the revenue to be able to fund these activities. And so, Charlie, let's come along. Let's be able to come to a sort of compromise. Let's get this budget done. In 2022, I am sure that government rolls out these programs. It's all to the benefit of Ghanaians and the improvement of the welfare of the ordinary Ghanaian. That's what government is seeking, and all government wants is the support of Ghanaians to be able to roll this out. That's all we are haggling about now.
Well, the problem is that the Ajemkwa budget has turned into a Woodie budget.
Turned to what?
A Woodie budget.
A Woodie budget.
That's what the NDC calls it.
Because you see, and you know, they're using the people to help the people, to service the people as a smokescreen to tax the people. The people who ought to be taxed are not taxed. The rich and wealthy in society are not taxed enough. And so government finds a convenient mechanism to tax everybody. And that will worsen the plight of the poor. He knows that. If you go to access government service, you're going to pay 15%. This is what the budget is saying for accessing government services. When you do the evaluation of the impact of the services, you see that those who are already down are further hit on the head. And that's what we're complaining about. Why is there talk now about the 1.75%? Because there was impunity from the beginning. They thought they could just impose 1.7 and get away with it. And they did their simulation or modeling and got how much they needed. So who cares? The people care. When you decided that I'm going to the minister, and I know the minister as a lawyer would not have taken that decision by himself. Now I'm going to waive whatever is going to come into the road fund from 18th November to 31st December in lieu of what is to come in. Then you are setting a trap for yourself. Because what would have come in? Would have been able to pay some contractors. Would have been able to do some few roads. But you waive that because you are looking at the big elephant, which has not been approved. That creates problems for you. So this is the problem. What is happening clearly is the manifestation of lack of engagement with stakeholders. Because if they are engaged, I just spoke to my good friend and brother, Fuseni. Why are we paying 2% to the telecoms? And we are resisting 1.75%. Have we learned something from them? Have we engaged them? How did they do it? Then we feel comfortable paying 2% to them. But we don't feel comfortable paying 1.75% to government.
I hear you. I hear your points quite clearly. But thank you very much. Vitus Azim Yunus Afuseni.
The budget has under very good policies.
Franklin Kujo. Thank you so much, Honorable Kujo Tablakwa, Honorable Sam George, Vitus Azim, for joining us on this episode of The Big Issue. I hope you had fun with us, enjoyed it. We'll be back next week ahead of the holidays. Have a fantastic weekend. My name is Godfred Akotobuafu.